Growing fallout over the newly released Jeffrey Epstein documents. Shocking high-profile names are being revealed, from A-list Hollywood celebrities to titans of industry and even former U.S. presidents. And that's just the start. A second batch could be released at any moment. We'll keep an eye on that. One name that appears 50 times in the documents is former President Bill Clinton. One of Epstein's accusers, Joanna Sjoberg, testifying that the pedophile told her that Clinton, quote, likes them young, referring to girls. The lawyer for the victims telling Jesse that the documents raise new questions about the former president.
A victim reported being on a helicopter with him and with Maxwell. There's another statement that she made that Clinton was on the island, which is very different than what we'd heard previously. We were heard that he wasn't on the island. Again, hard to say who to believe, of course, but he was on the island, but didn't take the bait. In other words, didn't have sexual relationships with any of the girls.
Bill Clinton denies ever visiting Epstein's island. Sjoberg also detailing alleged abuse at the hands of Britain's Prince Andrew, saying that he groped her breast and accuses the prince of having group sex with minors. Prince Andrew previously denied misconduct and settled a sexual abuse case by Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre last year. The explosive document dump also name drops 170 of Epstein's visitors, including Michael Jackson, magician David Copperfield, and former President Donald Trump. We do want to make clear that most of the people named in the suit, they've not been accused of wrongdoing. This judge, can you maybe also say whatever you want, of course, but why these documents are coming out?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Look, there was a lawsuit where Virginia Giuffre sued Ghislaine Maxwell for defamation when Ghislaine said she lied about the sexual abuse. So this lawsuit took place in 2016, and with most lawsuits civil, there's a deposition ahead of time. For some reason, from 2016 until today, those depositions were sealed. Judge Loretta Preska, who's a federal judge, made the decision that she was going to unseal them, but for two, and some say possibly three, Jane Does, who are saying that harm might come to them. So there will be, as a result of this release, a rolling release of more names going forward. So what we have so far is not all of them. I would caution everybody that this is not the black book.
Right.
The black book is now in the possession of the Department of Justice. And when I hear Ghislaine Maxwell say, you know, for all this, the only person who's in jail is a female, my response to her would be, you had the black book, you could have cut a deal. Or maybe Jeffrey Epstein, you know, didn't hang himself and she doesn't want to end up in the same situation. The most shocking name to come out was Stephen Hawking. OK, that was a stunner. And what is amazing, because you could say we don't know and we can't attribute wrongdoing to any of them, but Epstein actually wrote an email to Maxwell and he said you can issue a reward to any of Virginia's friends, that's a victim, acquaintances or family that come forward, help prove her allegations are false. The strongest is a Clinton dinner, and the new version in the Virgin Islands that Stephen Hawkins participated in an underage orgy. So there is an email from Epstein to Maxwell saying, pay them to shut that one down. Think also about the fact that you've got David Copperfield, Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson, Kevin Spacey. What is common among all of them? They've all been previously accused of sexual assault or some sexual deviancy. Bill Clinton with a college student. Copperfield with an underage teenager. Kevin Spacey, the same. And Michael Jackson, an accused pedophile. So the bottom line here, it's the bankers that these girls would not necessarily recognize. They don't know the network of banks that allowed the money. And they, in spite of the SARS, the suspected account of SARS, the suspicious activity reports, in spite of those, that network is what allowed this pedophile, and he is a pedophile, to continue to do business after his conviction in Florida.
Jesse, what else did you learn last night as it broke right around your show?
Well, the judge is right. This is a very small window into the world of Epstein. Besides being a benefactor of the sciences and a wealth manager, he was an intelligence asset. And that's why the federal government signed this non-prosecution agreement with him many, many years ago, because he was working for the CIA, possibly Mossad. Remember Ghislaine Maxwell's father, who drowned mysteriously off of his yacht, was also involved with MI6, with Mossad, and possibly the CIA. So the intelligence world has always overlapped with the aristocratic, political, finance, celebrity circles, and they use sexual currency as leverage. But what makes this sexual currency so potent and so illicit is with the girls who are underage. And no one seems to care about the girls. All the media seems to care about is making political hay out of these names. And they're so focused on linking Donald Trump to this when Bill Clinton has so much more exposure to Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump actually provided information to the lawyer of some of these victims that ended up checking out. He did it without having to be deposed. He didn't fight a subpoena like Bill Clinton did. Yeah. And it was his Department of Justice that ended up arresting Jeffrey Epstein. He cut off a relationship he had with Jeffrey Epstein a very, very long time ago. Meanwhile, Bill Clinton lied about being on these flights. I have someone that told me they saw him on the island. Bill Clinton was photographed getting a massage by one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. So the intelligence community still is trying to clean this up. And it just saddens me that no one's thinking about these victims, and everyone's covering up for the royal family, the politicians, the Bureau, Langley, and the media has just been disgraceful in their coverage.
$290 million went to the victims from J.P. Morgan. Sorry.
290 million?
290 million.
Okay, Greg, you got some thoughts over there?
This is the first I heard of Stephen Hawking being accused of sex with underage girls.
Yes.
I guess he really did prefer a brief history of time. All right. I listened to this news. I feel like I showed up at Target on Saturday after Black Friday. All the good stuff has been cleaned out. All that's left are 2 socks and a muumuu. You know, it's clear. It's all the stuff that you already knew, right?
Yep.
And it's like, the stuff that matters, the real black male stuff, was probably removed far, far earlier. It's like a bowl of Halloween candy at the end of the night. All you got are like Necco wafers and dots. There's no surprise. I don't think there's any surprises there. There's no Dana Perino, right?
Didn't know, no.
No, we have photos of you handing in a book a day overdue at the library.
I still feel guilty.
But, I mean, honestly, Bill Clinton at Epstein Island, that's as shocking as Mike Pence at church. So we saw that coming. For me, it feels like the UFO stories, right? They're always, like, for a couple years now, it's been like a series of tantalizing hints at something else, perhaps to keep us occupied with the morsels rather than the meat. And what's the meat? As Jesse might be alluding to, a larger, bigger operation that had its tentacles everywhere, and it's run by intel agencies to hold on to power and to wield influence, right? I mean, there's so many crazy things happening in this world that's unexplained. You could point to our immigration policy, which is a mess. Everybody agrees it's a mess. No one's doing anything about it. Perhaps a lot of these insane actions are because people are forced to do things because someone has something on them. Maybe it's not, you know, the filter isn't oppressed versus oppressor, but it's the compromiser versus the compromised.
Last word to you, Jessica?
Not a ton of new information, obviously, but deeply disturbing to see it all over again and to feel the gravity and the breadth of this scandal and how many lives it touched, how many people. We're all here in New York. We have rubbed shoulders by some of these people, walked down the street. They've been out and about, and some of them, you know, still have very high-flying careers, and it'll be interesting to see what happens to them. A few people have obviously lost their careers in the last few years as a result. I would say, though, on the Prince Andrew front, that I think this is different because now Queen Elizabeth isn't around to defend him anymore. You know, she tacitly acknowledged that this was true by removing him from public life. You know, she said, you're not in the Christmas card anymore, right? You're still in a palace, but it's a dinkier one, and you've got to get out of here. He has no one to shield him anymore from what he's done. I also think it's an important moment for local journalism, and Julie K. Brown at the Miami Herald deserves all the props and all the shout outs in the world that you can possibly muster for the backbreaking work that she did to break this story, originally to get interviews for all of those women who did speak out. I think it was on Good Morning America a few years ago that was happening. So support local journalism and make sure that they are getting the funds to do these investigations. Okay. And then what happens? Are any of these people going to be prosecuted further? Is that what's coming down the pike for someone?
The question is the statute of limitations. The question is the Black Book. Why is the Department of Justice not revealing the names in the Black Book? Why are they keeping it sealed? Look, we heard about Senator George Mitchell. We heard about Governor Bill Richardson. I mean, you don't want to see these names, but he was, you're right, he was running with people in power, but people in the banks. And the truth is that it was the Department of Justice through Alex Acosta who gave him the deal of a lifetime, took the case away from the local DA. And instead of investigating it for money laundering and everything else, when they had him dead to right, they gave it back to the local DA, and he got a slap on the wrist. Yeah. And if you remember that case, that was the one where he gave people immunity in perpetuity for life. Right.
Oh, the Hunter Biden immunity.
Mm-hmm. They had
Not quite as good as
and by the way, Necco wafers are actually pretty good.
You would
They're
say
the
that.
Best.
All right.
The best.
We're going to get some.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.